Hello everyone and welcome This is Africa, and here's Mozambique. Now let's take a peek, shall we? The ancestors of the people of modern Mozambique migrated into the region back around the time of ancient Rome. The new arrivals spread through the vast stretches of varied landscape and developed into different tribes, farming, hunting, and herding cattle. By medieval times, Mozambique's pallid shores bustled with trade as part of the Muslim-dominated Swahili coast, as numerous kingdoms sprang up and lodged themselves into the commercial network. One such kingdom was Matapa, rich in gold and ivory, which had attained its zenith in power when, in 1498, the ships of Portugal were spied from the beach. These were the vessels of Vasco da Gama, who was on his history-changing way to India. East Africa made a nice rest stop, and it wasn't long before the Portuguese began making themselves at home, grabbing land, setting up bases along the banks of the Zambezi River, and fighting the Arabs for control of trade. And while they fought, the Mozambicans suffered, many enslaved and sold by Arabs in the Indian Ocean slave trade and by the Portuguese, where they were packed off to toil on plantations in Brazil. This odious trafficking in human life only began to subside under British pressure and was finally abolished in the late 19th century. So the years buzzed by, and labourers grew cashew nuts, sugar, and sisal, a plant whose sturdy fibres are used to make rope. And all the while, the Mozambican people resented their overlords, and at last, in the 1960s, they began to fight for independence. They were supported by China and the Soviet Union, and waged a tough guerrilla warfare campaign. Years passed, and the fighting continued, and the war, and its enormous cost, grew more and more unpopular in Portugal. After that country's 1974 Carnation Revolution and ensuing change in government, the war was ended. And yes, Mozambique is the only country with a machine gun on its flag. Independence was far from the end of the nation's troubles, as the ruling regime became dictatorial. And what do you think happened next? That's right, a cake baking competition. No, of course not, it's always war. The Mozambican Civil War. 15 years of bloodshed and more than 1 million lives lost. Thankfully, the next leader did a lot of good for the country. Poverty decreased, education increased. So things were up, more violence. Okay, so now up, more violence. Anyway, Mozambique today, though it has enjoyed plentiful improvements in some respects, still faces manifold challenges and lingers low on the Human Development Index. Hopefully things turn around and this scenic country and its people benefit from its bountiful resources and experience happier times in the years ahead. So that's it for Mozambique, and that's all from me for now. Bye-bye!